Welcome to the Unlocked Life episode one. I was so close to not recording. In fact, I've been putting this episode off for a little while because I have not felt good, ironically, in health. When I really sat on it, I was like, this is the time that I need to record this because this is all part of the theme of what this podcast is and what it will be. I called this podcast The Unlocked Life because that is the mission that I feel I'm very much on for myself and have been since I picked up my first ever self help or self growth book whenever I was a teenager. The Miracle Morning, it was a bright yellow book. I don't know if anybody else has read it. And it was the first time that idea really lodged into my mind. I am not just here to go along with whatever life throws at me. And of course, life will bring us so many different things that we will never anticipate. But it was the first time I really felt like I have a say in this. Like I can create. At that point, it was just I can create the morning, the type of morning that I want. But that seed was so powerful because at a teenage age, I then started to get really into what else do I have a say in? How am I feeding myself? What would I like to do with my weekend? But really, I would say whenever I went to university, that's when I started to notice that real drive in me to be a little bit different with how I did things. I remember I had a lunchbox in university and it was called a spaceship or something. It was an embarrassing size and I had all these compartments. I loved that lunchbox because I used to get such a thrill the night before I went to uni. Every day I put my little raisins or my nuts in one compartment. I made up my wrap, put my veg in and my protein in. At that time, I was studying primary school teaching with PE. So there was a lot of nutrition that we were learning about. And I thought, oh, it's just because I'm a PE student. But in hindsight, what I see it was this real fascination for growth, for progress, for improvement in myself. And that definitely had two sides. There was two sides to that coin because in one way I was excited about continually bettering myself and exploring more ways to live in my potential. But at the same time, whenever you don't have much experience with regulating your nervous system and staying grounded, it can leave you being the person that is always pushing to get better. And as years went on, I definitely noticed that negative side of wanting to get better came in because after I graduated as a primary school teacher and moved to Madrid, I was teaching there full time. And my skin, that had always been an issue for me, the acne on my back and then the acne on my face, started to get worse. And at that point, I had been on years of antibiotic. So now that I know what that actually does to your system, no wonder my gut was having real issues. I was struggling with my energy, my mood at the time. I was in a new country. I was drinking way more at the weekends than I was used to. Partying in Spain is totally different because everything starts later. So I was sleeping less and I'm trying to maintain for the first time in my life a full-time job. I went down the rabbit hole whenever I couldn't get more medications to figure out how could I do this for myself? How could I figure this out on my own? And so I started to tweak my nutrition big time. I cut out a load of foods. I went off coffee. I went off alcohol. These things did make an improvement. What I know now is emotionally, my nervous system was completely up the left, living in a city that never stopped. And so over time, I explored, I researched loads of different things. And I'm so glad that was my journey because now in the work that I do with other women, I know what works. I know what's too much. I know where the simple things lie that actually do make a difference to your gut, skin, energy. So all of it was part of the unlocking stage for me. This went on through COVID lockdown. And when I was home, I had a long time to really sit with the space. I got an emergency flight from Spain home and I was living with my family. I was able to connect with the ground again. I was living in a flat with friends in Madrid. I was back in touch, literally physically in touch with the ground that I grew up in, my natural surroundings. And that definitely did something to my body and my mind that started to give me the space to actually reflect on how I had been living my life, not just in Madrid, but beyond that. Now, at that point, I was about 27. For anybody into the energetics, I was on the cusp of moving through Saturn returns. That is whenever we are in the energetics of reflection, life path. Are we on track? Are we not? I had got an email one morning from a parent of a child that I was teaching in Madrid, and she had asked me, could I do extra to support her child who was really struggling with whatever topic we were learning in science. And I remember getting that email and feeling this crushing guilt that I was not doing a good enough job for her and for her little boy as we were learning online. But also, too, and maybe this was a bigger feeling, the guilt of realizing that I didn't care enough. I got that email and it wasn't like, oh my goodness, I need to really help. It was this real honest feeling of this is not what I feel passionate about doing right now. I do not want to do this. I remember when I put my phone down, going into my bed and bawling my eyes out because I had told myself that I was a teacher for years, probably even before in secondary school. That's what I was working toward, the grades to get into the teaching college. And once I got there, it was grinding it out so that I could be the best teacher. But what I realized was I actually didn't want to do that. Did not feel excited about the prospect of that being my life for the next 40 years, which is what my parents had done. In that moment, everything fell apart where I was like, holy shit, if I'm not going to be a teacher, then what am I? What have I been working toward? Where am I going now? I'm glad that realization came over me in lockdown because I had the space to calm my nervous system, settle my body, and actually research what was it I was excited about. If that had happened in Madrid, I don't even know. Probably wouldn't have happened in Madrid because I wouldn't have the time or the space. And so ever since then, by year, I feel like life has unlocked a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more as I have got more and more honest with what is exciting to me and what isn't. And when I really give myself time over lockdown to think about that, what I realized I had been self studying for years was natural health, development, self improvement was all bundled together. That's what I was listening to on podcasts. That's what I was reading about. That's what I was spending my money on courses. But I never thought that I could actually do that. That could be part of my career. I went back to Madrid. I did one more year there and I loved the school I was in. But I needed more than just the community. I needed more than just my colleagues or the kids. I needed to feel passion and drive about what I was doing to actually feel healthy. And that's when this idea of like potential, like my human potential, our human potential, are we actually living that? Are we moving toward that every single day? And so my career so far since teaching has been, first of all, building up my client base as a kinesiologist. I studied kinesiology, obsessed with that because that was the first time I was learning about something that fully resonated with my soul. Everything that I learned there was like, yes, this feels like truth to me. This makes sense. Over the course of about 2 years, I built up my client base. I was subbing in the primary school at the time and slowly reducing my hours as a teacher while I was building up my hours with my increasing client base here at home in Portstewart. And then it got to a point where the next unlock was ready to happen. And that was when I started to notice feeling of dissatisfaction with how much I was able to do with my clients in that 1 hour session. I was seeing women and men and children, but mainly women who were coming in and were wanting the kinesiology session with me, wanting to know what foods they should go off, whatever it might have been. The way the hour was set up was quick fix, do this, do that, and away you go. I didn't hear from these people in between times because That wasn't the norm. The way my practice was set up was I'll see you for an hour and maybe every month until things get better. But what I really yearned for was to be with these people on their journey. And as time went on, my practice really started moving away from here's the food I want you to go off, here's what I want you to start eating, to what are the things that you believe about yourself that are causing you to have these health issues? It was going deep into the subconscious mind, into inner child experiences. How do we reprogram that? What is the trauma that is stored in your body? Simultaneously, this was the exact work that I was doing on myself. My practice was following my lead. And that turned into me deciding that I wanted to take people on for a minimum 6 months because that's what it takes. That's what it took for me. It was taken in my clients for people to have such a transformative experience that they don't need me anymore, that they have such a grasp on their authenticity, what their wounds are from childhood, how they can reprogram that, how they can hold themselves, how they can heal themselves, and ultimately how to look after themselves with such respect and deep self care that they don't need to be spending so much money getting continual sessions and treatments. And so my practice evolved into that, and I love that. That's still how I work with my one to one clients. Things then unlocked further. I started a program because I wanted people to experience the community aspect of being in contact in conversations with women where this was their normal conversation. I was lucky enough to start meeting friends literally through doing C dips. I was able to start making new friends where this was the level of conversation. I felt safe to talk about authenticity, things I was moving through, deeper wounds, what I was noticing in my life, energetics, all of that. That became my normal with new friends. And oh my God, everything changed. The quality of my life changed, my energy changed, my excitement. I was more social because I was meeting up with these people more. Life just got way better. And again, I want my practice to follow what I was doing. So then I tweaked what I was doing even more, introduced a group program so that people could also have this experience of being in community. Here we are. It is now April. It's May, and I feel like today marks another unlock where I feel like I want this conversation, I want this type of depth of thinking and of healing to be normal for anybody who hears this. The Unlocked Life podcast is really my way of continuing to inspire myself. Of course, I want it to be for everybody who listens, but it's also for me to be reminded that there are so many people out there who are living a life unlocked from the expectations that their society, their community, their family, themselves, they have been set, or rather the expectations that have set. There are so many people out there who are living crazy lives, who are living lives that seem so odd and so different, but also so inspiring to people like me, like you, who want to start unlocking our own lives. So I really do feel like because of this work that I've done and because of the journey that I'm on myself, we owe it to ourselves. It's almost like our mission. This is why we're here on this planet right now, is to unlock ourselves from the cage, from the box that we have been born into, from these rules that we think are here, from these lies that we tell ourselves of why we can't do this, why we shouldn't do that, why we can't show up this way, why we can't be ourselves around these people. The whole purpose of us being here is to unlock ourselves from those lies, from those expectations, to unlock into a life that feels exciting to you, that feels enjoyable, that feels, yeah, maybe it's a little bit quirky, maybe it's a little bit weird to other people, but it feels really good for you. And I know that there's so many podcasts out there where people are interviewed on, wow, look what you're doing in your life. How amazing. But what I think we miss is hearing about how those people step by step unlock their mind, unlock their brain. from how it was caged up. So I want this podcast to be a weekly dose of inspiration for you to really get an insight in lots of different people living different unlocked lives, but what is their mindset? Like, how are they mentally unlocked so that they can choose those things for themselves and sustain this unseen type of life? So, there will be people on that are going to be talking about unlocked ways, their lifestyle, through their type of relationships they have, through unlocking themselves, through their health. That is the premise of this whole podcast. And that is where my work is headed. Health is and will always be the foundation of what I'm doing. It's the foundation I help my clients build so they can get on with why we're really here, which is to unlock yourself, unlock life, and live out your potential, whatever that looks like for you, because it looks so different for everybody. Thank you for being here. There will be something really special in June 2025 that will be launching for people who deeply resonate with this sort of message, who are seeking this type of community, these types of conversations on the daily, on the weekly. I'm going to share more about that in the upcoming podcast episodes. But thank you for being here. I hope you get loads out of this. I'm really excited. As I said, it's just as much for you as it is for me. But yeah, thank you for being here, and I'll see you very soon.